Philippe Clement took over as manager of Rangers back in October. The transformation has been incredible. Taking over the blue side of Glasgow, he was 7 points behind leaders Celtic. Fast forward to today, Rangers are in a title race. They're probably league favourites as well, and we're going to check out his 4-2-3-1 in Football Manager. After watching it, I've always been a fan of him, but Tavernier in the match engine, and with these statistics in one of the simulations I did, absolutely wonderful. We're going to try and get the best out of him today. Let's go. Okay, everybody. So this is the 4-2-3-1. Now, this tactic is available for the Patreons. Link down in the description if you want to support the channel. All the tactic download files are on there for you to sort of like take over and plug straight in. Now, does it work in FM? Absolutely. I've done 3 simulations, all unfortunately finishing second. And as I said before, with Tavernier scoring so many goals. So it does work. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of doing the simulations, but I just wanted to see that it works. And it obviously does. I think if I'd have taken over as manager for the full season, we would have won. Now, I've played a few games to start with. Apart from the Sturm Graz kind of smash and grab where they beat us 2-1 in both legs, our league campaign has been tremendously good, including a 3-0 win over Celtic, with James Tavernier scoring a hat-trick. So, a couple of things when we're looking at it. It's quite a basic format. He likes to get the ball forward quite quickly. There's not an overplaying from the back. There's no neat, generally pretty patterns from build-up. They often, because they're playing against low blocks in the Scottish Premiership, I've watched sort of like deep highlights of the St Johnstone, Aberdeen and Ross County games that they've played recently. Obviously, a lot of teams are sitting in like a mid to very low block. They often just build with the 2 centre-halves with a wing-back sort of like moving on, and then Tavernier being quite wide to start with in the build-up phase, but then coming in and getting into these areas. So just a couple of little screenshots that I took. As you can see, generally building up from the back. The left-back is out of shot at the moment. That's Lundstrom in there, and they've got Tavernier sort of like in that right sort of like half-space channel. As they tend to build, Tavernier then comes into a wider area. Lundstrom is there, number 4, kind of very much sitting. We've got Tom Lawrence, who I really enjoyed watching in this game, playing as part of the double pivot. But then as the ball progresses inside, as you can see, Tavernier's run, we've got the winger staying extremely wide. You can't even see the winger. He's out of shot. I think it's Rabbi Matundu. He's out on this left-hand side that you can't see. The move eventually, I think, breaks down. As you can see, Marcus Tavernier right inside the penalty area with your left-back supporting, Lundstrom sitting, and once again, Matundu out of shot on this left-hand side. Building up with a back to the full-backs. You know, Tavernier's not starting extremely wide. Winger is wide, but Tavernier once again in that sort of like half space. Another clip is a little bit of a break. Todd Cantwell, the playmaker, getting on the ball. Centre forwards, I've watched Dessers. Obviously, they've had injuries, especially the midfield pivot with, I think Raskin's been injured. There's a really good player in the game. He's called like Cifuentes, is it? That I've not seen much of in the highlights that I've watched recently. He must be out injured. There he is. I've not seen much of him, but obviously in Football Manager, he looks absolutely tremendous. And then Tom Lawrence, even though in the game it says he can't do it, he has been playing as part of the double pivot. So there is Cantwell. I said Dessers likes to push the line back. He likes to get in behind. There's been a couple of goals and a lot of assists where sort of like balls played over the top from Lundstrom. Quick passes through the thirds into the front guys. Todd Cantwell dropping deeper to pick up the ball in this shot. As you can see, Marcus Tavernier is on his bike. Ball is eventually worked out to the right-hand side to the winger who stays wide. And look at Tavernier in there. I think he actually spurns that one over the bar. And then the last little one is something that we can't recreate much in the game. Lundstrom is tremendous. Normally just sits. If we look at his heat map, you know, he's not so much getting into the penalty area, but occasionally does move into more attacking areas. And that's generally to create space for a Tom Lawrence to get on the ball. So in this instance here, Lundstrom's moved forward, dragged out a defender. Tom Lawrence is then going to come into this little bit of space. And then they can play and they find a forward pass. See, Lundstrom's got into a really attacking area. That doesn't often happen. Obviously, when they're playing against teams, you know, that are right down at the bottom of the league, well, pretty much all teams at home, they're obviously going to have a little bit more rotation, a little bit more fluency in that midfield. So what I've done is I've gone with an anchor in Lundstrom and then a roaming playmaker. Now, depending on who it is, like Diamande played the other week, he's not actually in this save, so I couldn't copy him across. You could probably play him as maybe a Volante. I think Jack's played a little bit. I think more at the start of the season. He hasn't played too many games over the course of the season. So they've got loads of options in there. So for me, I think you could definitely change that left spot to whatever you wanted. I've gone roaming playmaker. Even a register would work. I'm a big fan of the register. So a register with the player instruction, potentially, if we go register, get further forward, that may have worked as well for that Tom Lawrence role against Ross County from them screenshots that I showed you. Okay, right, we're going to break it down. If you're not a Patreon, don't worry, we're going to go through all the team and player instructions, but by all means, check out the Patreon. I'd muchly appreciate it. So we're going to start off with the goalkeeper, sweeper, keeper on defend. Now, Tavernier is the most interesting one. I tried complete wing back and he just wasn't getting into them areas. We want him bursting in to that penalty area, and the only way we can do that is inverted wing back on attack. If we have him on support, he kind of lingers. Now, at times he has plenty of shots off from the edge of the area, but in general, we want him getting into the penalty area. So inverted wing back on attack. Two central defenders, there's not a massive amount of sort of like build-up. I think there's a little bit of occasional ball if they can hurt teams in behind with the two wingers. And obviously the striker, we've got Danilo playing, who I think must be out injured as well at the moment, but he's got a little bit of pace, so looking to sort of like play quick passes into space if we can. But we've got Balogun just as a central defender on defend, and Connor Goldson, ball-playing defender on defend. I think if you're looking to change a few things, you could by all means change those roles to whatever you wanted. If you wanted two ball-playing defenders, absolutely no problem. We just don't see a lot of intricate build-up because it's about playing through the thirds quickly and getting the ball into especially those front four. Left back, they've got nice little options at left back. They've got Yilmaz and Barisic. Both can play their nice little rotation options. Wing back on support, no player instructions. And then Anchor, Lundstrom, no player instructions. And then that role, Volante, Register with the get further forward, roaming playmaker. I'll leave that one up to you. Obviously, Raskin must have been out injured. Raskin's a player that I really like in FM. He was one of my better players in the save that I did with Go Ahead Eagles last year. Really good signing for Rangers. I imagine he's been out injured. He played against Ayr in the Cup, I think a couple of weeks ago. By all means, Rangers, let me know what's going on with that double pivot and what would be your ideal partner for Lundstrom when everybody's fit. Okay, moving into the front three, we said about Motondo staying at wide, high and left on that right and left-hand side. Now he is right-footed. So what we've got is him as a winger and cutting inside with the ball. We don't want him as an inverted winger because he will sit in here. Said with those screenshots, remember he was out of screenshot, so we want him as wide as possible, and then when has got the ball, he can then drive in with his right foot. The right-hand side, winger on support. We've got it on support just so he holds his position a little bit, helps him build up, and also then gives that opportunity from that underlapping run from Marcus Tavernier. AP, Cantwell, a Gaunch maybe would work. You're quite open to changing this, but I just love how Cantwell kind of roams into spaces. He does get quite high, then he drops quite deep. I do think AP on support is probably the best suited for him. And then up front, this could be anything. It could be presser, it could be advanced, it could be complete forward as well, so you're free to kind of chase that. I would go on the lines of pressing forward and advance forward just so he works in behind. Maybe even a poacher would potentially work. I do like Dessers, who's been playing recently up there. Little bit of a handful, little bit of a target, and has been getting in behind. There's been a couple of really nice goals and chances created from not a long ball, but a ball over the top from Lundstrom. I think in a game against maybe St Johnstone, I could be wrong, but I've definitely seen some highlights of some balls over the top and exploiting any space in behind. So that leaves us with the team instructions. So we've gone positive mentality, fairly wide attacking width. We've got those wingers wide, and that's it. And Barisic often gets into these. Barisic and the other left back kind of gets into these areas. And obviously we're expecting Tavernier, so we don't need an overplay of wide. Potentially if you're playing against maybe a back five with a low block, maybe then you'll open out the pitch even more. Pass into space, slightly more direct. There's not anything neat and intricate. They like to get the ball forward quickly. They like to try and exploit any space left in behind. So quick counter-attacks that we'll talk about in a little bit. But basically slightly more higher, slightly more direct, higher tempo. So important, again, I think, playing sometimes against low blocks. If you haven't got those really neat players that Rangers kind of haven't, they're relying on pace of the wingers, bodies into the box. We want it to be higher tempo and run at defence with those players, Cantwell, even the defensive midfielders, centre half, running with the ball, especially with a low block, just having something a little bit different to try and maybe break those really low blocks that they will come up against on a regular basis. In the transitions, we've got a counter press. That Rangers, if they're dominating games, teams are struggling to get out. The team, Ross County, it was brutal. It was relentless keeping the ball in their half. As you can see as well from the pass network, two centre-halves actually really deep. I think that's to just make the pitch a little bit bigger, try and enforce and entice teams to come out and press the two centre-halves. Obviously, you've got your Lundstrom, your Barisic, your Tavernier. Diamande was playing the Volante role. Cantwell, your two wider players, sitting quite narrow. Obviously, the pitch at St Johnstone was pretty shocking. So I don't know if that maybe, Philippe Clement talked about changing it and having to deal with sort of like the conditions. And then if you look at the Ross County game where it was absolutely relentless, as you can see, the average positions and the amount of possession that they had in the game, Tavernier, as you can see, was sitting a little bit narrower compared to the right winger, which was the youngster Ross McCausland, Rabbi Matondo, Yilmaz getting high, and obviously Des is really pushing onto that back line, creating a lot of depth in the team. Okay, so we've got that counter press on to have that relentless press, keep the play in their half. Counter, yes, absolutely, with the wide players, with Des who likes to get in behind, an absolute must. Obviously, might not happen very often, but we'll exploit it when we can and then distribute the ball to the centre-halves. As I said, they're not absolutely amazing at ball progression, but decent enough to start the play. And then out of possession, we've gone very basic, high press, higher line. Not absolutely crazy, but I would adjust that depending on your opponent. Playing Celtic is very much different to playing Ross County at home, and then obviously your Europa League games, so just be aware of that. Right, let's go and see some little clips. Let's go and check out their 3-0 against Celtic. Okay, so the first of his goals is actually breaking the play up and scoring from the edge of the area. He's often sort of like camped at the edge of the area, looking for pullbacks and stuff. We get the ball back, and as you can see, he is off. Generally, this is what happens. Remember those little screenshots that I showed you at the start? Coming into this space and darting into this space right here. And we do work it quite well. And I think it's often quite difficult to pick up an inverted wing back, especially when they're this high, because you're expecting your wider players to come inside. And he's often free, gets a little bit of luck, and then from the resulting corner, he camps himself on the edge of the area. So it's actually from it's like a second phase of the set piece. But this is where he'll generally be. And obviously, he's got good attributes for these shots at the edge of the area. So getting this inverted wing back on attack is so important. He's obviously an absolute master of the penalties. And then this one is him starting as a right back, obviously, and then drifting inside, playing into the box, driving in, and then getting a little bit of luck with a deflection, but getting into those areas that we wanted to see from the screenshots that we showed you at the start. This one, again, ends up being a Marcus Tavernier goal. Where is he? There he is. As we'd expect, the players with the wide players, just opening out and leaving spaces for Tavernier, Cantwell, that roaming playmaker or whatever you've got to work in. So it's basic build-up. We found Cantwell often drifts into these central areas. Tavernier on the ball, quick, incisive passing. We lose it, but we're going to get it back. Tavernier again. We get the play out to the left. Tavernier following, he's running to the middle. Matondo gets a cross in. Second balls, often in and around this area. So like between the penalty spot and the 6-yard box, he's often in these areas. And it's an absolutely tremendous finish. And then the last one, once again, where is he? Keep our eye on him. So he's a little bit more central than what I'd want. Normally he's not in here. He's normally in probably this area here with Cantwell moving in. But you do get it at times. It's just how it's maybe hard-coded in the game. But as you can see, he's lurking at the edge of the area. He comes out, he gets any second balls sometimes and then drives in and finishes. Tremendous season from him. When I watched it back, right, honestly, I thought, I'm not a big fan of Dalot at Manchester United. I thought he would be awesome. How was he not moved into England? I know he's playing in a very strong Rangers team, but he's obviously a leader. I think the age thing has probably now worked against him. I think he's like 31, 32 now, but a tremendous player, and he's absolutely wonderful in that inverted wing-back role. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed it. Tomorrow morning's video is Gary O'Neill's Wolves. We've also got Simone Inzaghi's 352, and then my 352, my tactical blueprint, is coming next week on the channel. All right, lots to look forward to. Smash a like on today's video, and we will see you at the next one. Cheers, guys. Take care. See you later.